here we go. Now, let's look at the definition of a proverb. What is a proverb? A proverb is a general principle in a specific situation. It's related to a pointed precept, like this is like that. In our day, we try to find the general principle from the book of Proverbs, or wherever else they occur in the Bible, and apply the principle in my life to a lifestyle. So a proverb is a brief, particular expression of a truth that teaches a general principle rather than an all-encompassing absolute truth. All right? What are some proverbs that we have in English language? A stitch in time. Don't make a mountain out of a molehill. What are some others that come to mind? Yes? Penny saved, a penny earned. Right? An ounce of prevention. So all languages in that have these. What are the characteristics of a proverb? Proverbs teach situational truth, not necessarily absolute truth. Proverbs are not absolute promises that guarantee an absolute outcome. Proverbs present lifestyle patterns that, if followed, provide the best opportunity for success and blessings. Proverbs provides skill for learning. The Hebrew word for wisdom is hakma or chokmah. In a concrete sense, the hakma or the chokmah in the Old Testament were the skilled craftsmen who made the tabernacle, the tent of the meeting, who made all of the altars and the table of showbread, and were able to weave the tapestry. They were called wise people because they could take the basic elements of earth and animals, and they could weave and create something beautiful and useful. And so wisdom is brought over into the spiritual realm and speaks about being able to take the principles of God's word or revelation and apply it to life and make something beautiful and useful. So a wise person who is somebody who is skilled in spiritual living. Now, Proverbs may be studied individually and or collectively according to thematic categories. Why is it that you can study Proverbs thematically, collectively, and you don't have to study them from chapter 1:1 to chapter 31? Why? Because Solomon tells us that he has created collections. He tells us that he has created these themes. And so he says the role of the reader is to discover. They're not epistles. They're not narrative gospels. They're collections that are given to us, and the purpose of them is to read them, reread them, group them, and see what he says about different themes. It's the exercise of wisdom where you collect these things and you say, what does it say about marriage? What does it say about family? What does it say about business? What does it say about ethics? Yes?
So if you were to teach through Proverbs, would you do it?
No. Good question, Norman. When I taught through Proverbs, I did teach the opening chapter because it is the introduction, the summary thesis. But then I took themes, and I'll show you the themes. Now, Proverbs are not legal guarantees from God, but guidelines for good behavior. Proverbs are not exhaustive in their coverage of all topics or any topic in its entirety. Proverbs present a number of typical characters that stereotype many life characters. And let me show you a few of these. For instance, Proverbs will talk about the wise man. All right? Whoops. The wise man loves wisdom and understanding and receives instruction. This is what he talks about a wise man. All right? He's a character. The second person he talks about is the fool. All right? The fool despises wisdom and understanding and resists instruction. Throughout the book, he'll talk about people who are fools. The third one is the scoffer, and there's a kind of intensity here. The scoffer rejects wisdom and understanding and refuses to be instructed.
Didn't show up that.
No, it doesn't show up as well. I haven't been able to get this one. I can see it real nice though. So, the scoffer. Now, it also talks about the criminal. All right? The criminal. The criminal entices to evil, devises mischief, talks perversely, but his end is death. And you find that in the book of Proverbs, it'll talk about these characters who try to draw people into crime, try to draw them into deception, into misbehavior, so on and so forth. The next one is the playboy. Do you know him, Francine?
Yeah.
Seen him in the neighborhood? The playboy is driven by his lusts, which leads to his destruction. Now, I use the word playboy to illustrate the character, but it's that foolish, immoral person that hangs around the red light district, that gets enticed and drawn in by the prostitute, so on and so forth. And the Bible talks about how these people are being led to the slaughter. He looks awful happy though right now. There is the prostitute, or what is called the strange woman. Where did she go? Oh, here we go. You're going to love this one.
I know we will.
The strange woman seduces the simple, destroys his soul, and leads into the paths of death. Now, just in case you can't see her in the back there,
Oh, Lord. You got to be something.
she is enticing, isn't she?
That enticing.
You gotta love the tattoos. All right. Then there is the naive, or the simple person. The simple lacks wisdom and understanding and requires instruction. They're just naive and dumb, right? It will talk about the sluggard, or the lazy person. The sluggard has a lazy mental attitude and acts irresponsibly as a life pattern. They don't learn from the ant and how the ant works and everything. And then, of course, there's the person of integrity. The man of integrity loves what is right and pleasing to God and receives protection and prosperity from God. So all of these are to simply illustrate that when it comes to the book of Proverbs, we're talking about characters, we're talking about principles, we're talking about ideas. Now, when it comes to the book of Proverbs, you know, I've probably documented, I know I have like over 100 themes that I discovered in the book of Proverbs. And one of the things that I like to do each year for Proverbs, and I will often do it for several months, is to just read one chapter each day, you know, for the 31 days of the month. And then what I will do is the proverb that in a sense catches my attention, and sometimes I won't do a whole chapter, then I will take it and I will write that out in a sense in my own words, just to solidify it. If you ever in my office, you'll see a bunch of scribbling on the board in my office. It's what I do when I'm done with my devotions. I will put up on the board the principle in my own words so that I can see it and remember it. Writing things out are a very, very effective way of remembering things. It's part of how God has wired our memory. And for me, if I want to remember something, if I write it down, I don't usually have to keep the note. I will remember it. Or if I'm trying to, you know, study for something, if I write it out, it reinforces it. It's just the way God has made our brain. So, principles for the interpretation of Proverbs. You read through the entire book to get an introduction of the different types of Proverbs. Then you read again and note major sections by extended themes. There are entire sections of Proverbs that, you know, cover one theme. Proverbs 31 is mostly known for what? The virtuous woman. And I'll tell you what, she's a hard worker, isn't she? I mean, she's a businesswoman. She's involved with her children and her family and the community. Oh, we miss those kind of women. Amen? Don't tar and feather me after. Read again to note the themes that come out to you that are repeated throughout the book. And then collect references to various themes. Sometimes you can summarize the themes into categories, and then you can kind of write a summary statement or a bit of a theological statement about that proverb. So if you're going to teach Proverbs, this is the way you want to prepare ahead of time when preaching through the Proverbs, is doing it this way. Picking a theme, what you think are some of the major themes. Now, when it comes to this assignment, hit the wrong one. Let's go down, I'll take you down to the assignment on Proverbs. It's a simple one. Read Proverbs to get an introduction to the different types of Proverbs. Observe the development of various characters in Proverbs, such as the wise man, the fool, the prostitute. Select 5 themes to trace through Proverbs. So when you read through, pick 5 themes, all right? Then collect the references to the 5 themes. Like wisdom, 1:2, 1:5, 1:7, 1:20, 2:2. The fool, 1:35, 3:35, etc. Then select 2 of those themes and write a 100-word summary. That's like a half a page about, you know, what is integrity in Proverbs? What is a good work ethic in Proverbs? You know, what is this? What is that from Proverbs?
In our own words.
Pardon me?
In our own words.
In your own words, right. You know, I mean, we're incorporating, you know, the biblical text, the idea of the biblical text also. Yes, Beth?
Are you separating themes from characters, or are they intertwined?
Well, yeah, characters can be themes, but not all themes are characters. So, because there's the theme of immorality. There's the theme of speech. There's the theme of anger. I was just going to look and see if I could pull up my list of themes. You know, there's ones on the tongue, ones on being a good neighbor, ones on poverty, ones on morality, ones dealing with lending of money. So you can pick any 5, document them well with the verses, and then write for me, you know, in other words, if you were to teach a short, you know, Bible lesson or a devotional or something, you know, this is what Proverbs says about this theme. Yes?
This is for next class period?
This is for next class period, right. So you have 2 assignments. But this one is, you know, shorter, and like, here's one I have on trust and planning, you know, and it talks about to remember, to obey, to grow, and, you know, some of the things that talk to us about how to trust God and how to remember God. So you just want to trace those themes along. Proverbs on the tongue. We should think before we speak, right? Then we should speak the truth at all times. We should speak so that people can listen. You know, you've heard people say, I've said to people sometimes, you're talking so loud I can't hear you. What do I mean by that? You know, you don't understand what I'm talking about. They're so intense, they're so loud that it's hard to hear the message, to understand the message. We should avoid flattery when we speak. So, you know, there's lots of ways that you can kind of group this. We should let our words be few. Other questions about this particular assignment? Proverbs about the poor. You know? God is concerned about the poor. The poor are in a dilemma. See, there's no divine way to necessarily group all of these. It's what Solomon tells us we have the freedom to do. Collect them, reflect on them, think about them. But they make for great principles for life.
So you want us to read all of Proverbs?
Well, you want to go through the book just as general, but then pick 5 themes. So I don't want you to try to digest the whole book.
You said 5. It says 2 things.
No, you pick 5 themes to trace and 2 to write on. Doesn't it?
Right.
Yeah. So you're going to make a grocery list for 5 themes and then pick 2 of them and write about them. The importance of giving to the poor. You know, practices to avoid poverty. And the main goal of this is to let you appreciate the hermeneutics of Proverbs, which is different from the hermeneutics of epistles or poetry or legal literature. In legal literature, you don't get to go through and pick and choose the laws you like. So, although people do.
Go through Proverbs.
Right.
And then pick out.
Find 5 themes that catch your attention.
Okay. And then
Trace those along, and then come back and pick 2 of those themes that you maybe found more information about, and write a 100-word, like a little sermon or a little devotional about it for the two of the 5.
So how many words? 100 total?
100 for each,
For each
right,
proverb?
right,
Okay,
for each category that you find, that you put together. Yes, Rod?
It'll be 200 altogether.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Plus a grocery list of 5 themes.
Okay.
Yep. Yes. I can't hear you.
The grocery list, how long do Chase have?
You know, a grocery list, if you have 5 themes, you should have at least 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 verses, you know, as you read along. And you can create a grocery list, and as you read along, add verses, you know, to the grocery list.
So you just want us to have the verses for the 5 things,
Right.
and then we have the words for the 2 things.
And then pick 2 of the themes and write 100 words on each based upon the verses that you have done. Like, here's one, poor planning, right? Here's 3 verses about poor plans. The plans of the diligent lead surely to advantage, but everyone who is hasty comes surely to poverty. So, you'd write about, you know, how to avoid poor planning. You know, addictions. Addictions lead to poverty, according to Proverbs.
Amen.
A poor work ethic leads to poverty. You know? So. Any questions on that? Yes.
Again, why didn't we just assume all the Proverbs apply to today? Why do all the Proverbs, the themes apply to today?
Well, they don't all apply to today. You have to understand, what did the proverb mean in that period of the kingdom culture, because it was written during the period of Solomon's reign. And then you have to take the principle and say to yourself, how does that principle apply to today? And of course, we will talk about how to build that network to the principle, how to properly bring about the principle. So, but there's some of them that are, because Proverbs are just statements about life and life in general, there is kind of a direct parallel sometimes. When it talks about the sluggard and being lazy, you know, that can become directly into our culture. So, but when it talks sometimes about farming, or it talks about things dealing with agriculture or herding of animals and that, like Paul does this when he talks about elders, or you know, people who labor in the Word of God, that they're worthy to be paid. He borrows upon an Old Testament principle or proverb. Do you remember what it is? Don't muzzle the ox. Right? Now, if you're going to put something on the ox, it shouldn't be on the front of them. Right? But there is a time when it's good to put something on the ox, but you don't put it on the front of them. Where do you put it? You put it on the back of them, right? Because you don't want that dropping into your grapes or your wheat. And of course, they had a way of putting the animal outside the circle. So, did I answer that question? So, I mean, there are proverbs that have no direct parallel, and you do have to look into, you know, building that principle. So, yeah. But this is more of a relaxed, applicational thing of just discovering the themes and then reflectively thinking about how you can collect them together and provide a devotional about them. So when it comes to, like, you know, the theme of you need to work hard, all right, that's the principle. You need to work hard in life if you're going to be successful. All right? So Norman, you work with the middle school, right? How would you specifically apply that principle to a middle schooler, that you have to work hard in life to be successful?
You have to study in order to learn.
That you should be a good student, do your homework, so on and so forth. That would be the principle, right? John, you're in the trades. If you were to say, how do I apply this principle, that you've got to work hard to be successful, what would you say?
So you have to move and work hard. Keep
Yeah,
busy.
yeah. John's in the tile business. That you got to work hard, you got to be diligent, you got to keep after it.